Doctor-companion romances. You either love them or you hate them. Of course, back in the innocent days of classic Doctor Who, this question of a Doctor-companion relationship never really came up. I mean, many people would say there was sort of tension or chemistry in some of those old Doctor-companion relationships, Sarah Jane and the Fourth Doctor, for instance. But the Doctor's relationship with their companion, first and foremost, was one of, mutual respect and admiration and affection. It was never a case of the companion pining after the Doctor, or indeed the Doctor pining after the companion, or the two of them snogging or anything. That stuff was just never on the cards. Of course, that all changed in 1996 with the TV movie, when Paul McGann's 8th Doctor became the first ever Doctor to kiss his companion. And then, of course, in the revived era of the show, particularly the sort of earlier seasons of Revived 2, this idea of the Doctor-companion romance has been a massive component of the show. And so, because it's Valentine's Day, I thought I'd do a quick video about the main Doctor-companion romances from Revived Doctor Who, just giving you my off-the-cuff thoughts on each one on a case-by-case basis. So we're going to be looking at the 10th Doctor and Rose, we're going to be looking at the 11th and 12th Doctors and River, and then we're going to conclude with the most recent Doctor-companion romance, the 13th Doctor and Yaz, or Thasmin of course, which, is still ongoing, so I will be reserving judgment somewhat to see how it's sort of resolved, in the Sea Devils special and the Centenary special as well. But I will give some thoughts about what we know about it so far, and also just my hopes for where it might go in subsequent episodes. And I'll be ranking each relationship as we go out of 3 hearts. So 1 heart is for the relationships where I thought it really didn't work and perhaps didn't even need to happen. 2 hearts are for the ones that I'm sort of more on the fence about, or I can kind of see the pros and the cons. And then 3 hearts are for the ones where I really think it has worked, or it's worked as well as it could have done in the context of the particular series or era. So first up, we have the 10th Doctor and Rose, or the 9th and 10th Doctor and Rose, because it was something that sort of emerged in Series 1, in the background, and then sort of came to the fore, basically, in Series 2, when the Doctor had regenerated into David Tennant. Can't imagine why that was the case. So look, this was the first Doctor-companion romance we'd had, really, so I think it has to be commended for that, It's not my favourite one ever, just right off the bat. But I do sort of see why it was done, and I do kind of like the fact that it was done, I love it or hate it, for better or for worse. This did at least take the show into new territory in terms of, what the Doctor-companion relationship could be like. I think the main thing it really does is sort of make the Doctor-companion relationship, and the whole premise of the show in a sense as well, by extension, sort of palatable to a more general mass audience, basically. It makes it very accessible, because obviously, you've got your young man Doctor, your young girl companion. It does sort of make sense for it to be a love story, I guess, when you've got, a Doctor that looks like that and a companion that looks like that. I mean, yes, there would be people that say, the Doctor should never fall in love because they're a 2000 or whatever year-old alien, and obviously the companions are like 20, or I think Rose at this stage was like 19 or 20, so it's a bit weird from that perspective. But then, like I say, in the sense of Doctor Who being a TV programme and, viewing it from the outside, in terms of how the Doctor and companion look and how the audience might relate to them and how the audience might interpret their relationship, it does make sense to go down that route, I think, and just try something new. I mean, obviously, yeah, it had been done briefly in the TV movie, but this is the first time where we get a Doctor-companion relationship across the whole series, and something which develops across multiple episodes. And I think, to be fair, in-universe as well, it does sort of make sense, because, yeah, the Doctor might be, like, 900 years old, or whatever he is at this stage, but ultimately, he does look like a sort of 30-something-year-old man, and obviously, when Rose is there in the TARDIS with him for the length of time that they spend together, then, yeah, it does sort of make sense that their relationship would progress into something a bit further, perhaps. But that's the thing about this one as well, actually, because, it never actually does progress into anything further, really. For all the talk about there being a romance between the Doctor and Rose and all that sort of stuff, famously, they never do sort of get together, so to speak, because it all goes pear-shaped, and they get abruptly separated in Doomsday, seemingly with no way to see each other ever again. I don't think it is actually quite as lovey-dovey as people make it out to be, the whole Doctor-Rose relationship. I mean, yeah, obviously that was what it was sort of marketed as, and that's the perception of it, and I guess more than anything else, it was that sort of thing of the Doctor and companion getting a bit too close, a bit too chummy, a bit too sort of complacent to things that were going on around them. That was a big part of it by the end of Series 2. And then, of course, it has to end in heartbreak. And, for better or for worse, that did open the door for there to sort of be this romantic element, I suppose, to the 10th Doctor, and informing his sort of personality as this sort of romantic hero who's been heartbroken, he's lost his lover, and he's now this sad, lonely alien travelling the universe. And again, love it or hate it, that is something that was new for the character of the Doctor. It took the show into new territory, etc., etc. So this one for me is getting 2 hearts, because I can see the pros and the cons. I don't begrudge the fact that it happened, I respect the fact that it did something new for the show, and a lot of people really sort of took to that. It's not something that I'd be clamouring to see in the show again, and obviously as we go through the video, there will be other instances of other Doctor companion romances and relationships. This isn't the only way that it can be done, by any means. But this is the one that set the ball rolling and proved that it can work and can be done. And that brings us to our next big Doctor-companion relationship. I mean, yeah, okay, River Song technically isn't a companion, but this does sort of still fit under the umbrella, I think, of the Doctor falling in love with people that he meets and then keeps meeting and goes on adventures with. I will say right from the off that I do prefer this to the Doctor and Rose overall. I just find it more convincing, really. It makes more sense, because River Song isn't just another human that the Doctor meets. She's more than human. She's an archaeologist as well, and an adventurer in her own right. And also from the way they meet as well, in the library 2-parter with River Song already sort of having this knowledge of the Doctor because they're meeting in the wrong order, essentially. That makes her more of a match for the Doctor, right from the off. It's not like someone who's sort of having to work up to speed to be on the same level as the Doctor, because River Song, right from the off, is on the same level as the Doctor, and in some respects as well, is actually sort of above him in terms of that hierarchy, in terms of, things that she knows more about than him, or things that she's better at doing than he is, She really is a match for him in the best possible way. In fairness, I think, particularly in Series 6, perhaps, when they do sort of lean into the romantic element of it more, where it is them, kissing and stuff, and River Song talking about how much she loves the Doctor in the Wedding of River Song, and how much the whole world loves the Doctor, and no one more than me, or whatever the line is. It does get a bit soppy and a bit sentimental for my liking, in places like that. I'm not saying this is the perfect Doctor-companion relationship by any stretch of the imagination, but I think out of the ones we've had, it is, by far the most convincing. It does make the most sense, especially with where Big Finish has taken the character on audio as well. I mean, at this stage, she's basically met every classic Doctor, possibly with the exception of Troughton. And then as well, she hasn't met the War Doctor yet, I don't think, or Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor. But hey, give them time. I'm sure they'll get around to it eventually. And obviously as well with Jodie Whittaker with the 13th Doctor, when she joins Big Finish one day, then that's bound to happen as well. So basically, at this stage, River Song has pretty much met all the Doctors, or at least will have met them all by the time Alex Kingston pops off this planet. I do think that when you think about her in sort of original TV context, like in Series 5 and 6, this whole mystery of who is River Song, the whole thing with the silence and killing the Doctor and being the astronaut, and of course being Amy and Rory's daughter as well. When you think about it like that, then yeah, it is a bit weird how that is the person that ends up being the Doctor's wife and their best friend or whatever. Like, out of everybody the Doctor has ever met, it ends up being the daughter of 2 of his companions that also tried to kill him. But I think when you look past that, there is a lot of fun to be had with River Song just as a character, in terms of the Big Finish stuff, and also in terms of her last TV story to date, The Husbands of River Song, which is just such a lovely, fun romp, really. And yeah, the whole premise is a bit sort of silly, how River doesn't realise that the 12th Doctor is the 12th Doctor, despite the numerous unsubtle hints that he keeps dropping right in front of her. She's great alongside Peter Capaldi. Obviously with Matt Smith, it was always a bit weird with the age gap, although then again, he's like a 2,000-year-old alien, but he looks like a younger man, so it was a bit strange perhaps. And then it's nice to sort of have the tables turned, where rather than River Song being older than the Doctor is suddenly a bit older than River Song, or sort of on par with River Song in terms of their physical age, in terms of the actor that's playing them. Yeah, I think that's when the relationship between the two of them was at its best and at its most effective, and it's a shame we didn't get to see more of it. But then again, Big Finish, one day I'm sure will pump out like 24 seasons of a Beryllium spin-off set, one for each year. So I'm going to give River Song 3 hearts, because like I say, I think out of all the Doctor companion relationships we've had so far, this one is the most convincing and the most effective, and also because of the way that River Song has been expanded, beyond her sort of original TV context into this character that has now met effectively all of the Doctors. She has sort of earned that status of being his wife or, best friend or whatever you want to put it, his equal. And despite some sort of overly soppy or sentimental moments, perhaps, I do think that overall, this is the most effective Doctor companion relationship we've had so far. And that brings us right up to date with Thasmin, the 13th Doctor and Yaz, which only very recently came to the fore. It had long been rumoured, long been speculated, long been hoped for by a lot of people. I think it is a case of something which wasn't necessarily planned from the start of this era. I could be wrong there, I could be completely talking rubbish, because it is something which has been anticipated in certain fan circles for a very long time prior to it actually being realised and being confirmed on screen. And so, either way, whether this was planned or not, it does very much feel like this has taken on a life of its own in fandom, and is something which the show has so far barely scratched the surface of in terms of the possibilities that it offers. Now that they have gone down that avenue and committed to actually having that relationship and making it canon, essentially. In terms of where I sit with this one, right now at the moment, I'm going to give it 2 hearts out of 3. I do quite like what we've had from it so far, in Eve of the Daleks, and then also before that, little hints and bits and pieces. But Eve of the Daleks was when it sort of first came to the fore and first was sort of properly delved into. Before that, the little hints and teasers and stuff could have gone either way, or they could have just at least been left for fans to interpret and not actually confirmed on screen. I think it's a really interesting point we're at now, in the sense that, like I say, there's been a lot of Thasmin speculation, a lot of Thasmin artwork and fan artwork and stuff, and we're at that point where it's been confirmed, it's been written into the canon of the show, but we don't quite know where it's going to go next, and crucially as well, how it's going to end, because obviously the 13th Doctor is going to regenerate in 2 episodes' time, and Yaz isn't going to be in RTD2, presumably. And that's a really interesting place to be, because like I say, people have these hopes and expectations and things they want to see happen. Most notably, probably, a kiss between the two of them. I think a lot of people are sort of hoping to see that on screen, and yet we don't actually know whether they're going to do that or not. So it is this very interesting point where I think more than any previous Doctor companion relationship, because of how social media and stuff is these days, and because of the way fandom is these days, there are sort of multiple ways this relationship could go, multiple ways it could progress. I mean, personally, and I'm probably in the minority here, but I don't actually think they need to kiss. I think that would sort of cheapen the whole relationship in a sense, because, obviously we've got this massive affection between the Doctor and Yaz for each other. I don't know, I just think to go into that sort of stereotypical thing of it being, like, physically sexual, would perhaps cheapen it a bit. But then at the same time, I can see why people want it to happen, and why it would be an important thing to happen, and a groundbreaking thing to happen as well for this first female Doctor, of course. It's been about the two of them not being honest and open with each other, and struggling to sort of express their feelings for each other and about each other and to each other. And so I think that is the really unique thing that marks out this particular Doctor companion relationship. This idea that, these are two people that really like each other, but have struggled to sort of express that. And of course, we're going to get to a point, where it's too late almost, because the 13th Doctor is going to die, is going to regenerate, and Yaz, as I say, is going to be left behind somehow, or go her own separate way, or whatever. We are approaching this moment of heartbreak. And yeah, it's just had that really sort of tragic sort of tinge to it, really, in the sense that they haven't been able to reach that point of complete honesty and openness with each other, and just also being the best person they can be to each other. They haven't sort of been able to reach that sort of optimum stage of the relationship. And clearly by the time they realise that, it's going to be too late, the rug is going to be swept from under their feet, and everything is going to go a bit pear-shaped, and that's going to be really sad to see. So yes, 2 hearts for Thasmin so far. I do think it has the potential to be a 3-heart relationship, further down the line once it's concluded. But for the moment, I am going to reserve judgment and wait until we've seen the other 2 specials. I mean, it's only right that I do that, really. I like what we've seen of this so far. I like the subtlety of it and the nuance of it as well. I just hope they can keep it up into the final 2 specials and conclude Thasmin in a satisfying way. So that's what I think of all the major Doctor-companion relationships we've had in New Who so far. But what do you think? Is a Doctor-companion relationship something which you are completely against seeing ever, no matter what the circumstances, no matter who it's with? Or are you a massive Thasmin shipper, or Tenrose shipper, or Riversong and Doctor shipper, or just whatever really? Or are you a bit more indifferent to the whole idea of a Doctor-companion romance, not quite sure, a bit more on the fence? Whatever the case, please do let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear what you've got to say. Please give this video a like if you have enjoyed it, and also subscribe to the channel if you're new so you don't miss out on any future Doctor Who videos. And if you want to go one step further and also get your name featured at the end of every video that I make, please check out my new Patreon page linked in the description below. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.